What's up, agency owners? Jason Swenk here with another episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass for digital agency owners that want to grow faster, hearing other people's stories. On today's episode, we have a great guest, an agency owner who actually specializes in the restaurant industry and really had a really good comeback story after COVID, because we all know what happened with restaurants and the hospitality industry. It's a really cool story. So let's go ahead and jump into the episode. Hey, Robin, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you on. So tell us who you are and what do you do?
My name's Robin Blanchette. I am the founder, owner, and CEO of Norton Creative. As you mentioned, we specialize in the restaurant industry, restaurant and hospitality. We do hotels and some other things too. But we've been open about 8 years and just we keep on trucking.
That's great. So tell us, how did you get started and how long did it take you to pick your restaurant niche?
Well, my background is primarily client side. So I'm not an agency person by trade or nature. I will say Uh, I worked for an agency once in my 20s for about a year, and I was like, hell no, I'm never doing that again. I was like, worked on the in CPG world, and I was like, this sucks. I'm not doing this. So I stayed on the client side. I'm a former chief marketing officer, former media director. And so for years, I really loved that. I mean, you really, if you're on the client side, you can go really deep. I got to manage culinary and all the pieces of running marketing for a restaurant industry, brand. It's fun. It's great. But I also had small children. I was a single parent at the time. Starting to look for something that would allow me the opportunity to make every soccer game, make every play, be present, be able to volunteer, things like that. And I ignorantly thought that starting my own company would be able to help me do that. Although I can honestly say I've got teenagers, I've got one in college, one in high school. I can honestly say I didn't miss anything that was important, gratefully. But I was the company that I worked for. Sales were starting to soften, and I was in all the executive team meetings. We were talking about how we were going to have to reduce fixed costs. Everybody was going to have to take some G&A cuts, and I started thinking about the opportunity of taking my in-house design team and starting our own company. We talked about sort of being a revenue resource internally at the company, and it's like, gosh, why can't we? And my VP of design at the time was like, we could do this for other people. Like, why don't we? And I thought we did some really interesting things and interesting work, created brands internally for the company, things like that. So worked with the CFO to develop a short-term business plan, and it benefited the company because of just reduced G&A, and I charged them back less than their G&A was, so they ended up being a savings. So that's how we began 8 years ago in April, and we've touched over, at last count, almost 150 different restaurant brands, whether it's been a project like an interiors project, or whether it's been a retained partnership over the years. So we do both.
So,
That's our story.
yeah, and that's exciting. What made you choose restaurants though?
Well, that was most of my background.
Okay.
I love the industry. I mean, there's really nothing not to like about it. The people that work in the industry, whether you're a bartender or whether you're the CEO, it's just we're fun, gritty people. We like to roll up our sleeves. We like to figure things out. The problem could be a year-long problem. It could be a short-term, clean that table, turn the table kind of problem. But the people that are in the industry is really what has always drawn me to it. My background was working with very large chains. I did start my career in the retail industry, working for Michael Stores in their marketing department. So I had retail, but they're very similar in terms of their advertising and marketing approach. It's really about butts and seats, increasing checks, suggestive selling, all those kinds of things. So that's really where my heart was and is. And while I can sell other things, and we certainly do other things, if somebody comes to us, as a financial services company, we can certainly do work for that. But we know a lot about the industry, and we kind of have special services versus maybe another traditional agency that does all kinds of things.
So what was it like when COVID happened and your whole every one of your clients is in the restaurant market getting closed down?
Pretty much. That was, I would say, the worst week of my career. Um, Trying to figure out what to do because every client called and said, "Hey, we're shutting down. Our revenue is shutting down. We're gonna have to. We can't pay you." Um, and all I could say was, "I totally get it. Like, I understand." And we had to let go a lot of our staff. I didn't want to furlough people because I wanted people to be able to get assistance. At the time that the government was providing a lot of unemployment assistance, I wanted to make sure they were able to catch that. But it was a terrible week, and one of the most telling things, and I look back on it now, is that how just totally understanding and supportive everyone was, including the people that I had to let go. I Not a single employee that we had to say goodbye to that day was angry, was upset. Every single one of them came by my office or said goodbye and said something to the effect of, "I'm so sorry this has happened to you. I'm so sorry this has happened to Norton. Like, Norton's such a special place. I'm sorry." I'm like, "Gosh, you're the one without a job. Like, I'm sorry for you, but it's just gracious people." And I would say the industry, even the clients were like, "I'll make it up to you. Like, I'm so sorry." But, I mean, it's just, that's the way it was. Not every client left. There's plenty of restaurant brands that did okay through the pandemic. Certainly fast food did well. Anyone with the drive through. Anyone that was scrappy and decided to roll up their sleeves and figure out how to, do third party delivery, those kinds of people. But so we didn't lose every client, but it was close. And so we just stop, drop, and roll was the best way I can put it. The way in elementary school in the 70s, I used to learn how to, avoid a fire. I thought was going to be a lot bigger play in my life than it really was.
Or
But
they used to tell us get under the desk for, bombs or like
right,
nuclear. I'm like,
that's right. I'm
really
like,
getting under my
wow.
desk is going to prevent me from burning alive?
Right. It's like that great meme about quicksand. Like, I thought it was going to really be a problem in my life as much as I heard about it.
Yeah, I don't even know where quicksand is.
I don't either. I don't even know what it is.
If
It's crazy.
anybody's listening that knows where quicksand is, like hit me up on Instagram and let me know.
Right. And we will avoid it.
Yes, we'll avoid it. But I can tell you, I've been in a lot of places, a lot of weird places, but I've never run into quicksand. Uh,
Good. Good.
so a lot of these clients are like saying, "Hey, I can't pay." Some are getting scrappy. You're holding, you had to lay off a lot of people. What was, one of the things I was telling people during the pandemic when it started, it was like crazy. Like everyone was freaking out. I was like, look, I, and then a lot of people were like, see, I told you shouldn't have picked a niche, right? Like you
Right.
should have picked that niche. And I'm like, well, you could have never seen any of this coming. But what I told everybody is like, look, don't forget about your market. And I even used restaurants as an example. I said, look, all restaurants are probably closed down, especially in the first couple of weeks. Support them how you can, like at a 50% roll, but then 50% of it go after some other industry that's actually starting to thrive in this. So what did you guys do in order to make it back?
Well, what I would say to folks, and not dissimilar from sort of your feedback, which is I said, be you more. Be Go deeper in the industry, provide support, do pro bono work. We did a lot of pro bono work. And I have a brand now that is our largest client that said the reason we increased your scope and your retained, fees is because you stuck by us when nobody else would stick by us. And I mean, this was a buffet concept at the time, and I have to say that nobody thought those would be coming back, but they are in full force. And you know, so I think that's what we did. We just dug in our heels. I mean, if somebody would have come to me from oil and gas, I mean, we're in Houston, Texas, or something, and said, "Can you do the work?" Of course, we would have done it. And we did do a couple things here and there, but really, we just did more restaurants, and we also offered up services that we do, but was meeting the needs of the brands, like virtual brands, ghost kitchen brands, things like that. We did a ton of just basic branding work for for digital, Olo and those types of folks, loyalty programs, things like that. Because all of a sudden now, maybe we weren't, building brick and mortars, but we were selling a lot of new brands, which was actually pretty cool because now we're working with brands like TGI Fridays, and developing a virtual brand for them is actually helping them use their kitchens that are empty to, sell products they already serve, keep their suppliers in business, which was a, problem too. Our suppliers were having problems because they were saying, "Gosh, we have nobody to serve." So it was sort of an extension that way. Virtual brands for us, I don't want to say kept us afloat, but did really, really help during the pandemic.
What other things did you do that, well, what other things helped you stay sane during this? Because there's a lot of agency owners I chat with, and they're going through a challenge. Maybe it's pandemic, maybe it's something else, right? The pandemic was really bad, but I always tell people, like, there's the silver lining. There's an opportunity. Like, you're given just enough of the stuff that you can get through. What kept you sane?
Well, the first thing we did, I guess for me personally, was to just focus on the people that we did have, and say this is what it's for. Like, I also thought in the beginning, gosh, should I just shut it down? Because it's not like we're, uh, you know, uh, DDB or somebody, right? I mean, we're not part of some giant holding company. I don't have sort of shareholders necessarily to, attend to, but I do have a team that is looking to me to say, what's next? What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And that really kept me sane. Um, I also, I decided we're not going to quit. And so once you make that decision and say, okay, well, now we roll up the sleeves, we figure it out. Like, now what we're going to do. In the very beginning, I wrote, I didn't know you were going to ask me this question, but I wrote guiding principles for the pandemic, for the team, to just say, you know, focus on what we can control. We can't think about, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the government's going to do. I don't know. But what we can control is the work we do and the people that we do the work for. That's it. So that was the first one. Get real comfortable with being uncomfortable. We tell our clients that all the time when we're trying to stretch them creatively. But for us, we had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. This is the people that maybe did social posts, or scheduled social posts, or don't work here anymore. So, you as a director, maybe if we're working strategically, now you're working back in the front lines, if you will. So get comfortable with that. One of the things that I thought about a lot was sort of that idea of hope over fear. Pick one. Like, I can't be scared all the time. First of all, my team doesn't need that, but like, let's be optimistic and hopeful. This isn't going to last forever. It seemed like it did, but
I know it did.
people are
I
always
know.
going to want to eat out.
Stop watching the news.
Right. And, in the restaurant industry, there's been conversation for a solid decade before the pandemic, about the industry needs a correction. There's just too much supply, too many seats, not enough people to sit in them. It's just, we're overrun. I mean, and I'm based out of Texas. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, there's just too many restaurants. So this is not what we had hoped for, this kind of correction, but the industry lost, I think, over 100,000 restaurants. So it did help coming out of the pandemic. There's just less places to eat. So, it did, the correction happened, but I think it's some ways benefited us, sadly. Um, Internally, we said assume positive intent. Like, just look, nobody's out to be an asshole. You know what I mean? We're just all trying to figure it out. We're all wearing our pajamas to work every day. Like, I've got kids at home, just assume people are doing their best and they're trying to do their best. And then the last thing we said internally, which everyone said, I think, well, not everyone, but I think folks that really wanted to make a difference was like, let's not waste the crisis. Let's go figure out what we're going to spend our time, that the PPP money and all this. Let's figure out what we're going to spend it on to, come out of the other side better, stronger, clearer, so.
I mean, everything that you said is great 24/7.
Yeah, totally.
And that's I'm so glad you shared that with us, and everyone listening in, you should go, are we doing this? And constantly not just make it like a list and actually say check, 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 check.
Right.
Like, it's literally a constant, like, are we living
It
it?
really
Are
is.
we doing it? Are we communicating it? And as the whole team, not just you. I always laugh
Yeah.
when agencies go, well, we have a vision, we have a mission, we have core values. We checked that box 10 years ago, Jason. I'm like, well, do you know it? They don't know it. I'm like, okay, you don't
Right.
know it. Your team doesn't know it. That means that's probably why all the decisions are coming back to you. They're like, how'd you know?
Yeah. Well, I always say my job is to work myself out of a job. And so I spend a lot of time making sure that I am not the one, in the middle of all that. I did write these guiding principles, but it was because it was at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was like, I just need to be clear about. Now, obviously, you've heard these things before, so I didn't technically write them, but I put them together for the team, and then we just use that as sort of our brand filter, if you will, for the pandemic. And I don't does it work? Does it not work? I don't know. I mean, the reality is we're on the other side, and I think we are getting close to where our revenue was before. We always want it to grow, and we want to grow people and grow them in their roles and things like that. But
Well,
anyway.
I love to hear that, you stepped up as being a leader and then you're building other leaders in the organization. That's how you can truly scale. Like, if all the decisions are put through the owner, and if you're listening, if all the decisions are going through you, you should realize there needs to be a change. You need to be building leaders who are building systems, and then you can create that freedom that we all wanted. But until then, you have no freedom.
Right. I mean, I'm like, look, I'm not the expert. In fact, my background's media. So I was a media director for years, and I can tell you all about the upfronts and what the next, round of TRPs need to be, but I am not, I mean, I'm inspired by creative people, which is why I'm surrounded by them, but truly they are the experts. I mean, leaders create leaders, and that's my job. I feel like every single day. So, I mean, I have to poke my nose and stuff every once in a while, but it's only because maybe the client's looking for, me to be around or
Yeah.
something. But I try to really stay out of that stuff. That's a lot of responsibility to have to know everything that's going on every day.
Exactly. Well, Robin, this has been amazing. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the agency owners listening in?
The one thing I try to think about all the time, especially through the pandemic and being in this industry, is just something I said earlier about be you more, or be a better version of yourself. I think that goes for our companies too. We decided coming out of the pandemic we were going to level up. We're going to level up everything, level up talent, level up our partners, make sure that we had the best in class, people, partners, a place to live, place to work. And that one, I mean, I got my health in in place. Like, was in really bad health. Like, so leveling up taken this opportunity to do that and be more of who we are, better and stronger, is the only advice I would give, because that's what our jobs are. It's for the teams to be able to grow. They can't do it unless they see us do it. So
Well, that's great advice. What's the agency website people can go and check out the agency?
we are at www.norton-creative.com, and that's Norton.
Awesome. Well, everyone go check that out. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe it, share it with a friend. And if you want to be around amazing agency owners where we can have some fun, you can scale faster, grow faster, cry when we have bad days, and
Yeah, that's that too.
Have our therapy, so then we can make tomorrow an even better day and get closer to our goals. I'd love to invite all of you, go check out digitalagencyelite.com. And until next time, have a swank day.